Our experience of longevity is an inherently social one. We don't get through this life without each other. From the moment we're born until we take our last breaths, our lives are intertwined and reliant on fellow humans. But we don't talk much about how vital these connections are and how to create and maintain them throughout our new, longer lives. But the fact is, the more connected we are, the happier and healthier and longer our lives will be. Let me tell you about my personal learning journey with social connection. I'm a retired Army brat, which means for the first 13 years of my life, I moved 5 times and went to 6 different schools. And I learned the hard way how to make friends wherever I go. And it didn't help that I'm extremely introverted, and my teachers inevitably wrote things like, "Amy's really quiet and shy, and she reads books during recess." And I never felt disconnected until about 5th grade. At the time we were stationed in Germany, I went to German schools with my German friends and spoke only German. And then we got stationed to Hawaii, and I was so excited, only to get there and experience huge cultural shock. Not only did I first realize that I spoke English with a German accent, but I missed my friends terribly and cried myself to sleep every night. And I never called it loneliness because I was surrounded by new kids at my new school and in my neighborhood. But I did feel that disconnection physically, and my mom's advice to me at the time was, "Amy, to have a friend, you have to be a friend." And I took that to heart. And what I also learned from that lonely year is that our social connections aren't always permanent. They're fluid and ever-changing and require nurturing and sometimes replacing. From that painful experience, I began to develop and learn the social skills and habits that I needed for the rest of my life. And I feel like if someone with those dorky haircuts and braces and bad choice in clothes can do it, anyone can. But I bet your story's not exactly like mine. But I do imagine that you've seen some of these headlines. Loneliness and social isolation is becoming a growing problem in our world today. And it's so easy to feel sympathy for the people described in these articles, but I think it's also really easy to feel separate and different from them, that somehow that's not us, that'll never be me. But if we're all honest with ourselves, we all feel socially disconnected sometimes. And if we can't do something about it, that can lead to loneliness, isolation, and being a part of these headlines. We're all just one move, one job change, one divorce, one illness, one death away from feeling disconnected, of not belonging, of reaching to call someone only to realize that they're not there for you anymore. So we need to redefine social connection for ourselves and make it personal. Social disconnection can lead to social isolation, which is physically not being around other people and not having support, but it can also lead to loneliness, which is a feeling of not belonging, even in the midst of others. And I want to dispel one of the most common myths about social isolation and loneliness today. It does not just affect old people. Research shows that Americans of all ages can be and are socially disconnected. In fact, the group that repeatedly reports the highest prevalence of loneliness is our young people. When I think about what social disconnection feels like, it reminds me of hunger. When you feel hungry, you get something to eat, and the feeling goes away. And if you feel hungry and don't eat something, yeah, you'll lose some weight, but slowly begin to starve. Likewise, when we repeatedly ignore these feelings of disconnection, it can lead to loneliness, isolation, depression, illness, and even death. Our culture stigmatizes loneliness so much that so few of us will admit to feeling it, and then we can't address the problem. Instead, we like to distract ourselves with easier and less risky tasks, or even take a pill to make the feeling go away. The Stanford Center on Longevity's Sightlines research has found that Americans, about half of all Americans, are doing the active things they need to do to remain socially engaged, which is fantastic. But it also means that half of us are not. Social disconnection is such a problem, and we know social isolation and loneliness can make us sick. But did you know it's as risky as smoking? That it's twice as fatal as being obese? That it increases our risk factor for a variety of diseases, including heart disease, stroke, cognitive decline, dementia, depression, suicide, and death. Our bodies and minds need social connection, and half of us in our country aren't getting enough. So the first step, I feel, is really redefining what social connection means to you and personalizing it so that you can have better social health. Another common misperception is that somehow our social relationships should happen naturally and without any effort or intention. It's interesting to me that in the areas of physical health or financial planning, we know what we need to do to be healthy and happy and live longer lives. I know I'm supposed to exercise more. I know exactly what foods I'm supposed to eat. I know I'm supposed to work longer, and I know I'm supposed to save more. But what is my recommended daily social allowance of social connectedness? So as we think about our social connections, we need to prioritize them and make them as important as the other things we do for our health. We need to build our lives around a range of social ties, starting from the center circle, these close intimates, our significant others, all the way out through the outer circles of acquaintances and familiars. Each of these types of ties plays an important role in creating a diverse social portfolio, and we need both the depth of the intimates, our spouses, our partners, our close friends and families, as well as those in the outer rings in our web of contacts. And keep in mind, as we get older and go through life transitions, we're going to depend more and more on those inner circles. The inevitable life transitions we all go through will require us again and again to recreate our social networks. Certainly difficult life transitions, like illness or divorce or death, will challenge our social portfolio. But even happy milestones, like getting married or retiring, can disrupt our social connections in ways that are difficult and stressful. That happened to me when I had a new baby. When I was a new mom, I left a job I loved to take care of my firstborn. And it was a decision I made with absolute joy and certainty. And with the new baby came a new home, and my husband took a new job that required more travel. And next thing you know, it was me and a baby sitting at home alone a lot. And I didn't know what I was doing. So I joined a parent education class, and one day the insightful teacher asked us this question: who is your community? And none of us could answer. The moms and I were sitting on the floor holding our infants, and she had to get more specific. All right, write down the name of someone in this room that could call you if they needed anything. And that was pretty easy. I picked my new friend Joyce. I'd only met her a couple months ago, and all I knew about her was that she had a son around the same age as I did. She lived nearby, and she was fun to talk to. So I wrote her name down with pride because I felt like I was being a good friend for her. And then the teacher asked the next question. Write down the name of someone that you will call when you need help, even if it's at 3 a.m. And I couldn't do it. The thought of burdening these near strangers with my problems was too much for me. And Joyce, who happened to be sitting next to me, peeked over at my blank page and whacked me on the arm. You better put my name down. Don't you know I want you to call me? Don't you know that? And it stunned me because as a 35-year-old woman, I realized for the first time that friendship isn't just being there for each other or for someone else, but it's allowing someone else to help you. and being vulnerable enough to ask for that help. And Joyce is still one of the first people I call when I need help. So as our social circumstances change and as we go through life's transitions, our social needs change too, and it's important to prioritize your social health much like we do our physical and financial. You probably are thinking, I have 500 friends in my online social network. And that's great for some things. But the research is really on the fence about whether these extensive online interactions we have will provide the level of support, meaning, and connection that we'll need throughout our lives. Keep in mind that even when we have hundreds of friends, you can still feel lonely. So it's important to remember that it's not just the quantity of relationships we're looking for. We're looking for quality and depth of connection and a sense of support that we can give each other. Research has found some of the best ways to do this are to develop meaningful relationships with our spouses and partners and significant others and friends and family. How do you do this? Spend more time with each other. Support each other. Ask for help and feel like you get support from them. The other thing we can do is participate in purposeful activities and groups. Volunteering, it's what we do at work in our neighborhoods and communities. My colleagues and I have found that overall about half of Americans are doing what they need to be doing and half aren't. And where we're doing well is with our families and our spouses, but where we need a lot of work is with supportive friendships and being engaged in our communities. Another way to get at this depth of connection is through intergenerational relationships. We should be interacting on a daily basis with people of all ages in our workplaces, in our schools, and in our neighborhoods. But because our culture has separated the young and the old in such artificial ways, it's created a separation, and it prevents us from having some of these close social bonds. Our kids attend schools where it's hard to find anyone over the age of 50. And entire neighborhoods and communities and buildings are exclusively for older adults. And by separating the young and the old, we've created isolation for both our elders and our youth. My grandma's 98 years old. She lives alone in a very rural part of the country. She doesn't eat right. She doesn't exercise. She doesn't have a lot of money. She's buried 2 husbands after caring for each of them for years, and her friends from her youth and midlife have all passed away. And you'd think she'd be the poster child for that lonely older adult, but she's not. And the reason is because she continues to volunteer in the local nursing home for the old people. She's active in her church. She has card games with the girls who are 20 and 30 years younger than she is. These are her new friends. My grandma is probably the best example I know of someone who has a rich and connected life and is happier and healthier and longer lived because of it. I aspire to be like her when I grow up, to keep an open heart to new relationships of all ages, and to keep lending a hand wherever I can, in ways that provide purpose and meaning in my life. But I'm still a work in progress. I'm still building on the lessons that I learned as a young child and as a new mom and from watching my grandmother. But what can we all do to have better social engagement and health and connection? I leave you with 3 thoughts. Redefine what social connection means for you and make it personal. Loneliness and social isolation are not just happening to other people or old people. We all can feel disconnected sometimes, and we need to build and learn and practice these social skills for ourselves and then model them for others, especially our youth, like my mom and grandma do for me. Second, prioritize your social health. We need to put as much intention and effort into this as we do our physical health and financial planning. Make time in your day for each other. How much? Only you can tell. But remember that half of us aren't getting enough. And finally, it's not just quantity that matters. We really are looking for quality of relationships. And the way to do this is to reach across the age span, have meaningful relationships with people of all ages, and participate together in purposeful activities. So few of us, so far, are beating the drum that says, go spend time with your friends, support each other, rely on each other, volunteer together, with the message that these things are vital for your health, happiness, and longevity. Now, I know more than most, but I'm sure you know too, even when we know all the right things to do, we don't always do them. And I find it interesting that there's so many ways to track my progress or lack thereof in physical health and financial planning. My wearable can tell me I don't get enough exercise and how much more I need to get in that day. And websites can tell me how much I need to save for my retirement. But what is there to measure the sense of support I feel or the quality of the relationships that I have? Where's the technology to measure and monitor something as subjective and personal, but as important and vital as our social connections? So I leave you with this last question. What if we put as much focus and effort on our social health as we do our physical health and our financial health? What if designers and entrepreneurs created new ways, not just of measuring and monitoring, but motivating healthy social behavior? What if employers offered social wellness programs, or if financial advisors included social connectedness as a part of their retirement planning programs? What if communities and cities could restructure our schools in ways that allowed for intergenerational contact? And what if our healthcare plans were able to include social connectedness as a part of our overall well-being measurement? We all play an important role in promoting the lifelong health habits of social engagement. Invest in yourself, invest in your future selves by prioritizing social relationships in your life. And remember, your happier, healthier, and longer life depends on it. Thank you.